Before we begin this incredible story, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you never miss our best emotional stories. Now, let's dive into this amazing tale. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestone plaza outside Windsor Castle. Tourists from every corner of the world gathered with cameras ready, eager to witness the famous changing of the guard ceremony. Among them stood Marcus Hayes, a 32-year-old man from Manchester who had driven down with his family for what was supposed to be a peaceful day trip. His wife Sarah held their young daughter Emma's hand while his teenage son, Jacob, snapped photos on his phone. The crowd pressed closer as the guards marched into position. Their red tunics were immaculate, their bearskin hats perfectly aligned, and their faces remained completely expressionless. Despite the chaos of clicking cameras and excited chatter surrounding them, these were not actors or performers. These were real soldiers from elite regiments who had served in combat zones around the world. Their ceremonial duty required the same discipline they showed on battlefields. Standing at his post near the castle entrance was Guardsman James Mitchell, a 28-year-old veteran who had completed 2 tours in Afghanistan. His rifle was positioned precisely, his posture perfect, and his eyes stared straight ahead as training demanded. He had performed this duty dozens of times, always maintaining the stoic composure expected of the Queen's Guard. Nothing was supposed to break that focus. Nothing was supposed to make him move from his position unless absolutely necessary. But James had no idea that this ordinary Tuesday morning would become the day that tested every ounce of his training and self-control. He couldn't have predicted that within minutes. He would face a situation that would be captured on dozens of cameras and shared millions of times across social media. The peaceful ceremony was about to turn into something entirely different. Marcus had been having a difficult few months. His business had failed, leaving his family in financial trouble. The stress had changed him, making him angry and unpredictable. His wife had suggested this trip, hoping it might lift his spirits, but instead, Marcus felt increasingly irritated by the crowds, the heat, and the long wait. When someone accidentally bumped into him while trying to get a better photo angle, something inside Marcus snapped. He turned his frustration toward the nearest target, the silent guard standing just feet away. Completely unaware of the storm heading his direction, Marcus pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with anger that had nothing to do with the guard and everything to do with his own unraveling life. His wife called after him, sensing trouble, but her voice was lost in the noise of the gathered tourists. Marcus approached the guard with purposeful steps, and several people nearby began to sense something was wrong. The atmosphere shifted from excitement to tension in mere seconds. Guardsman noticed the approaching figure in his peripheral vision, but remained perfectly still, as protocol demanded. Tourists often got too close, trying to make the guards laugh or react. It was part of the job to ignore such attempts, but there was something different about this man's energy. Something aggressive in his movement that triggered James's combat instincts even as he maintained his ceremonial stance. What happened next shocked everyone present. Marcus reached down and grabbed a souvenir baseball bat from a nearby vendor's display. The kind sold to tourists as a memento of their visit to London. Without warning or provocation, he swung the wooden bat directly at the guard's head. Screams erupted from the crowd. Sarah shrieked her husband's name. Children began crying. Cameras that had been recording the ceremony now captured something far more disturbing. James's military training kicked in with lightning speed. His years of combat experience, his countless hours of physical conditioning, and his deep understanding of threat assessment all activated in a split second. While maintaining incredible control, he moved just enough to avoid the full force of the blow. The bat glanced off his bearskin hat, which provided some protection, but the impact was still significant. Pain shot through his skull, but James didn't cry out. He didn't stumble. Instead, he did something that would demonstrate the true difference between a trained soldier and an angry civilian. Rather than immediately retaliating with violence, James assessed the threat level with professional precision. Marcus was winding up for another swing, his face twisted with rage, completely lost in whatever demons were driving him. The crowd scattered, giving the confrontation a wide berth. Other guards were already moving toward the scene. But James knew he had seconds to act before this situation escalated into something far worse. His responsibility was to protect not just himself, but also the innocent bystanders who surrounded them, including Marcus's own terrified family. As Marcus raised the bat for a second strike, James made his move with the calculated efficiency of someone trained in close-quarters combat. He didn't reach for his rifle, which would have been excessive force and could have endangered the crowd. Instead, he used his hands and body, weapons he had trained with for years. In one fluid motion, James stepped inside Marcus's swing range, rendering the bat useless at such close distance. His hand shot out and gripped Marcus's wrist with crushing force. Stopping the downward arc of the bat mid-swing, Marcus's eyes widened in shock, suddenly realizing he had attacked not a statue or ceremonial figure, but a highly trained soldier who could respond with devastating effectiveness. James twisted Marcus's arm using a joint lock technique, applying just enough pressure to force him to drop the weapon without breaking any bones. The bat clattered to the cobblestones with a sharp crack that echoed across the now silent plaza. Every phone in the vicinity was recording, capturing the moment from multiple angles. Within seconds, James had spun Marcus around, bringing his arm behind his back in a control hold. The entire movement took less than 3 seconds from start to finish, a masterclass in professional restraint and effective neutralization of a threat. What happened next surprised everyone even more than the attack itself. Rather than slamming Marcus to the ground violently, which would have been completely justified, James lowered him down with controlled force. His training emphasized minimum necessary force. And despite the assault he had just endured, James maintained that discipline. Marcus found himself face down on the cobblestones, James's knee firmly planted on his back, his arm secured in a position where any resistance would cause him significant pain. Other guards arrived within seconds, forming a protective perimeter around the scene. Metropolitan police officers came running from their nearby posts, taking over custody of Marcus as James released him into their care. The entire incident, from first swing to police arrival, had lasted less than 30 seconds. But those 30 seconds contained a lifetime's worth of training, discipline, and professional response. Marcus, who moments before had been full of rage and aggression, now lay subdued and confused, the reality of his actions beginning to dawn on him as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Sarah rushed forward, tears streaming down her face, trying to reach her husband while also shielding her children from the chaos. Police officers gently but firmly held her back as they secured the scene. Emma was crying, not understanding why Daddy was on the ground with policemen around him. Jacob stood frozen, his phone still recording, his face pale with shock. Their peaceful family outing had transformed into a nightmare in the span of heartbeats. As Marcus was lifted to his feet, blood trickling from a scrape on his cheek where his face had met the cobblestones, he seemed to wake from whatever angry trance had possessed him. His eyes found his wife's horrified face, his daughter's tears, his son's disappointed expression. The weight of what he had done crashed over him like a wave. He had attacked a soldier on duty in front of hundreds of witnesses, with his own family watching. There would be serious consequences, legal ramifications that would affect not just him but everyone he loved. Guardsman Mitchell returned to his post, adjusting his uniform and replacing his bearskin hat, which had been knocked slightly askew during the confrontation. His commanding officer approached quickly, asking if he needed medical attention. James declined, stating he was fit for duty. A small cut above his ear was the only visible sign of the attack, though his head throbbed with the beginning of what would become a significant headache. Still, he had faced worse in Afghanistan. This was nothing compared to actual combat. What struck witnesses most powerfully was James's restraint throughout the entire incident. Multiple security experts who later reviewed the footage pointed out that he had been legally and professionally justified in using much greater force. Marcus had committed assault with a weapon against a soldier on duty. James could have struck him, could have used his rifle as a defensive weapon, could have responded with the kind of force that would have left Marcus seriously injured. Yet he chose the minimum necessary response, protecting both his attacker and the surrounding crowd. The ceremony continued after a brief delay, though the atmosphere had changed completely. Tourists who had come expecting a colorful display of British pageantry had instead witnessed the reality behind the ceremony. These guards were not actors playing roles. They were real soldiers with real training and real capability, performing a duty that required both discipline and readiness. The incident became a powerful reminder of the professionalism and restraint that defined the British military tradition. Marcus was taken to the local police station, where he was formally arrested and charged with assault on a soldier performing ceremonial duties, a serious offense in the United Kingdom. As he sat in the holding cell, the fog of anger that had clouded his judgment for months finally lifted. He thought about the moment his hand closed around that bat, the irrational fury that had driven him to attack a complete stranger who had done nothing to him. What kind of man had he become? During his interview with police, Marcus broke down completely. He explained about his failed business, the mounting debts, the sleepless nights worrying about providing for his family. He talked about the depression he had been hiding, the anger that had been building inside him like pressure in a volcano. None of it excused what he had done, and he knew that. The guard could have been seriously injured. Marcus himself could have been killed if the response had been different. His children had witnessed their father at his absolute worst. Sarah was allowed to visit him, briefly before he was transferred for arraignment. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying. Emma and Jacob were with her parents, spared from seeing their father behind bars. Sarah told him she loved him, but didn't know if she could stay in the marriage if he didn't get serious help. The wake-up call Marcus needed had arrived in the most public and humiliating way possible. But perhaps it was the only thing powerful enough to break through his denial. Meanwhile, the video of the incident went viral across social media platforms. Millions of people watched the footage of Marcus swinging the bat and Guardsman Mitchell's swift, controlled response. Comments flooded in from around the world, praising the guard's professionalism and restraint. Military training instructors used the video as an example of perfect threat neutralization. The contrast between Marcus's wild aggression and James's calm, measured response became a powerful illustration of the difference between reacting emotionally and responding professionally. James. Mitchell gave a brief statement to the media, deflecting praise and emphasizing that he had simply done his duty as trained. He expressed no anger toward Marcus, only concern for the man's family who had witnessed the incident. This response earned him even more respect. Here was a man who had been attacked without provocation, who had been justified in harboring resentment, instead showing compassion and understanding. His words reminded people that behind every violent outburst is often a person suffering, someone who needs help rather than just punishment. Marcus's trial took place 3 months later. His attorney argued for leniency based on his mental health struggles and lack of criminal history. Character witnesses testified about the man Marcus had been before his business failed, describing him as a loving father and dedicated husband who had lost his way under crushing pressure. Medical experts confirmed he had been suffering from untreated depression and anxiety that had manifested as rage and poor impulse control. The prosecution presented the video evidence and called Guardsman Mitchell to testify. James's testimony was measured and factual, describing the attack without exaggeration or emotional language. When asked if he wanted to make a victim impact statement, James surprised the courtroom by addressing Marcus directly. He spoke about his own struggles after returning from Afghanistan, the difficulty of adjusting to civilian life, the importance of seeking help when the weight becomes too much to carry alone. He said he bore Marcus no ill will and hoped the man would get the treatment he clearly needed. The judge sentenced Marcus to 18 months in prison, suspended on the condition that he complete a comprehensive mental health treatment program and perform 200 hours of community service. It was a merciful sentence, one that acknowledged both the seriousness of his crime and the mitigating circumstances that led to it. Marcus wept openly as the sentence was read, knowing he had been given a second chance he didn't fully deserve, but would work every day to honor. The story didn't end in that courtroom. Marcus enrolled immediately in therapy, finally confronting the demons he had been running from for so long. He joined a support group for men struggling with mental health issues. Finding solidarity and understanding with others, Who knew what it meant to feel like you were drowning while everyone around you assumed you were fine? Slowly, painfully, he began rebuilding his relationship with his family and himself. 2 years after the incident, Marcus did something that took immense courage. He wrote a letter to Guardsman Mitchell, apologizing without making excuses, thanking him for his restraint and sharing how that terrible day had ultimately saved his life by forcing him to get help. James wrote back a brief note expressing his appreciation for Marcus's honesty and wishing him well in his recovery. That exchange of letters represented something powerful about human capacity for both failure and redemption. The incident at Windsor Castle became more than just a viral video. It sparked important conversations about mental health, the pressures men face in silence, the importance of professional training and restraint in conflict situations, and the possibility of redemption even after public failure. Marcus's story reminded people that we rarely know what battles others are fighting. James's response demonstrated that true strength isn't found in domination but in control, not in revenge but in compassion. Both men, in their different ways, taught the watching world valuable lessons about what it means to be truly strong, truly professional, and truly human.